appreciate you being with us today because I believe that this is one of the most inspiring segments that we have ever had because I believe we have some folks here that their faith, their courage, their commitment to the Lord and their families make them an example for all of us. And I would like for them to introduce themselves. Of course, you know Mike Hickson, who is always with us, and James Fields, who has been with us before, and we appreciate him being with us. But I would like for both of these ladies to introduce themselves. Nancy?
I am Nancy Hickson. I am Mike's wife. And what else would you like for me to say?
Well, being Mike's wife is a very important part of his life. I know I think he's smiling bigger than he has on any of our other segments that we've had on Mandate. And on this side,
I'm Tonya Fields, James Fields' wife. We have two sons, grown sons, I should say.
Grown sons.
Grown sons, yeah. One's about to be married, and I'm an accountant, and I definitely attend Coleman Avenue Church of Christ.
Right. And you know, both of these women are here today because of what they've been through. The Apostle Paul one time said, I went to the Lord 3 times with the issues. He called them a thorn in the flesh, I believe, Mike. And he said, I went to the Lord 3 times, and he said, the Lord said, my grace is sufficient. And both of you have had the type of health scares that make so many of us lose our faith and lose our courage. And Mike, why don't you tell us a little bit about your wife and the journey that she has had?
Well, 2 years ago, Nancy, I guess 2.5 years ago, Nancy was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer, which is a very aggressive form of breast cancer. And so she, based upon the diagnosis, the oncologist said, we've got to hit you with everything that we have. And so she went through 2 months of Red Devil, which is a really strong form of chemo. Mm-hmm. And then she did another 12 weeks of Taxol. And then once she got done with that, they did surgery. And then following surgery, went through a month of radiation and then 3 more months of oral chemo. Mm-hmm. And so it really, I guess, for probably 18 months, it really was a tough journey for her. And I guess the thing that really stands out in my mind, she was diagnosed with stage 3 triple negative, and there's a high rate of return. And you know, she said, I remember on the front end of it, she said that if I've got 6 months to live, a year to live, 5 years to live, whatever it is, she said, I'm good with it. And I remember thinking, you know, you may be good with it, but I'm not.
But you're not necessarily.
And so, you know, it really heightens your awareness of how temporal life is and how quickly things can change on a dime.
Yeah, that's right. And his strength and his faith, what did that mean to you in this struggle?
Well, he was there every step of the way, and it was the most encouraging. I mean, it meant everything to me to know that he was there for me. And I mean, he had to do everything for me, and it was just, I mean, it was encouraging. He was supportive, and just, it was just incredible. And you know, it made me think, what do people do that don't have that kind of encouragement and support? You know, that that don't have that kind of spiritual encouragement and support from a husband or from a spouse. You know, it just really makes you think.
Even though it was a bad situation, as we think about the brevity of life, still God let us know that life is brief.
Right.
But still, his support, his strength, his encouragement, it helped give you a foundation and gave you the strength to fight. And I'm quite sure that was part of you having a good outcome.
Absolutely. That and knowing that, you know, we had people all across the nation telling Mike that they were praying for us, that, you know, people we didn't even know.
That's right.
That, you know, and that was such an encouragement. Getting cards from people that we didn't even know was such an encouragement.
That's one. Prayer works, doesn't it?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
works.
Brother John, in James chapter 1, James talks about counting it all joy when you fall into various trials. And I don't think he's saying there that when you're in the middle of a storm that you're grateful for what you're experiencing, but I do think that James is saying and teaching us that once we come out on the other side, there are things that we look back upon and say, you know what, I learned some things, and I learned a lot, and I've often said that there's a figure of speech called hyperbole, which means an over-exaggeration. And I said, there are some people that are kings and queens of hyperbole, but she is the very opposite. She will never tell you exactly how she feels. I mean, it's always positive no matter what. And so, you learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about your spouse, and I think you learn about your faith, and what Nancy said about, you come to appreciate our brotherhood, the fact that there are people that truly care, and that will reach out and be supportive of you and what you're going through. And you mentioned the Apostle Paul and how, God said, my grace is sufficient for you, and you learn a lot about God's grace and how he'll carry you through in tough times. And, personally, and I mean this, I really don't feel like I did anything throughout the process. I mean, she had the bulk of the burden, and I'm just kind of a passenger along the way. But and I'm sure it was the same for you. You're having to deal with things that probably never dreamed of.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Now, and we're going to continue our discussion, and we're going to go to James and let him tell us about what he and his wife have gone through. But we're going to take just a brief break. And while we're taking that break, I want you to think about the fact that all of us on this journey, we've got those things that we've got to grapple with and deal with. I want you to imagine, what if you didn't have the love of your family, and what if you didn't have the love of a good, gracious, and merciful God? That's why we thank him every day. We'll be right back.
I want to beat cancer. I'm going to beat it. That's no doubt in my mind. I'm going to win this battle.
Defeating cancer will take all of us. At the V Foundation, V is for victory over cancer. V is for victory over the odds. V is for victory over giving up.
Don't give up. Don't ever give up.
Join the V Foundation team in the fight against cancer at V.org.
I think that a lot of us, we lose our faith, our confidence, and we allow ourselves to get so caught up in what we're fighting that we forget that we've got somebody on our side while we are fighting. And what do you think about that, Nancy?
That's absolutely true. We can get so caught up in fighting the cancer, the whatever our illness is, that we forget that God is with us. God is doing the fighting for us, and that we just need to rely on God. Of course, we have our support, our other Christians, our family that's with us, but it's our faith that we really need to rely on, and it's our faith that we cannot give up on, and we can't deny our faith and turn our back on our faith, and that's what we have to put our trust in, is our faith and our daily Bible study and our attendance to church, whether we can actually attend church, or like I had to do because of the chemo, depleting my immune system. Our online attendance. We have to continue with our faith and put our trust in that.
And you knew God was everywhere. While you were bedridden or home-ridden, you knew that the Lord was right there with you. And I would like for both of y'all to speak on this. I've talked to folks who were actually angry. They were angry at God. How could this happen to me? Why did this happen to me? And y'all had to overcome. You had to overcome this. And I like the fact that you said that your faith sustains you. Tanya, you went through a similar experience as Nancy. And that you ever lose faith or confidence What kept you going?
No, I never even asked the question, why me? Because that's not, who has time for that?
Yeah.
I had to focus on other things. I had friends and family, my husband, and just the whole support group. And so my focus was staying strong. I had one nurse at the church, a retired nurse, and one thing she told me, she said, you just need to stay faithful and advocate for yourself.
Right.
And once she told me that, okay, I need to advocate. So don't sit still. You got to get into action. And so that, for me, it was all about action. And I relied on my support system.
And you rang the bell.
I rang the bell
recently.
yesterday. Yes, I did. I was so excited to do it. And then my husband surprised me and had a bigger group than I even expected to be there. And so it was wonderful to see my true support system right there with me as I rang the bell. And I actually did it twice because my brother was on the phone saying, ring it again. And the nurse said, go ahead and ring it again. And so I rang it again.
You rang it again.
So it was, and I mean, I shed more tears probably yesterday than I really expected to, because they also told me that I was cancer-free at that point. And so all of that's just wonderful.
And you know, Nancy, you said that you haven't rang the bell yet, but you do have the good news of knowing that at the moment you don't have anything aggressive happening. So you could say theoretically that at the moment that you're cancer-free, and they've got to watch you how often? Every so many months?
Right, and that with my cancer, there's like a 65% chance that it will come back within the first 3 years, and then it drops to a little less chance within 5 years. And so I've got, 9 more months to go for the 3 years to pass. And so it's highly likely to come back within this next year. So they're really watching it, you know. But again, you know, we've got prayers and faith, and that's what's gotten me this far. And so, you know, I have faith that we're going to get through this next year, and I'm going to be cancer-free. And,
Amen.
you know, I'm
And
not
ring
worried
that
about
bell.
it. Yes,
Amen.
absolutely.
Amen.
I would like to close with the two warriors that are sitting on either side of you. And I know that these guys had to be strong arms for you. Those moments when you felt your absolute worst, that they had to kind of take you in their arms and reassure you. And Mike, tell us about that experience quickly, and then we're going to have James before we close out this segment.
I mean, I think you just have to get up every day and keep on keeping on.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think one of the silver linings is that, you know, our son was grown. We didn't have small children to deal with, and that's a great blessing. And so, you know, you just thank God for what you have, and what you don't have, you don't need.
Yeah, that's so profound. James?
And I found I had to get out the way and stay out the way, and then, but also be in the way as well, because, you know, a lot of times it's difficult to see your wife suffering. You know, it's real difficult to see her suffering, but also to be that support, but to also be the heavy hand, then also know how to take the heavy hand off. That's because, you know, the doctor tells you different things to help support, but also at the same time, you're like, okay, I want to do more because I want her to be around, you know. So it was good, and it was different. But then to see her joy every day, as Brother John said, he said that he never saw her with a frown on her face. She never spoke negative about it. She may have been in pain and things like that, but she always, one of the things she wanted to do was, I want to go to church. I want to go to church. And, you know, that just gave me the strength and the encouragement.
Well, we appreciate what we've heard, because it's encouraging to us. All of us are going to go through something. My Papa Stalin, as we called him, my great grandfather said something. You ain't getting out of here alive anyway. So we understand that, and because of that, we depend on our faith. I want to thank Nancy and Mike and Tonya and James and all of you for listening to their story here on Mandate, and it's been inspiring to me. I'm sure it has been to you also.
Having the opportunity to tell a family that's tried everything to treat their child that we have something new that could help, seeing the hope come back to their eyes. That's really what makes all our research, all of our work, so much more than worth it.
As one of the nation's top children's hospitals, our research isn't just beating the odds, it's changing them. Find a clinical trial that could change everything at seattlechildrens.org/clinical trials.
God has always been a good God who has always been truthful with us. He has always been forthright with us. He's let us know, and I think all of us on this stage know that he has said our life is like a vapor that vanishes, a flower that blossoms and withers. But, he has made such a beautiful world and given us beautiful families. We kind of like being around a while to enjoy those things. And so we can imagine how frightening it is when you get a diagnosis or you get some news that says that life that we love and enjoy is being challenged. We talked to Nancy and with Mike in our first segment, and I want to turn to James and Tonya, and I often say it wrong in this segment. And James, I want you to tell us kind of what your wife went through from your perspective as Mike did.
A little over a year ago, Tonya was diagnosed with colon cancer. And we initially thought it was stage 1, and we found out it was stage 3. So it was a little different because this is a woman who's never been sick. Besides the common cold and things like that, she's never had surgery. She's never had anything that was frightening to me. Of course, the birth of our children and things like that. Yeah. But nothing that was medical. So first, my first response was, okay, how did this happen? Because she goes to every doctor's appointment. She keeps all her appointments, and she's diligent about doing those. And, she didn't go to the doctor because she was sick. She went to the doctor because she was routine. And she was routinely taking an appointment, and they told her this. So my first question to the doctors was, why didn't y'all know this? Why didn't y'all find this out? I mean, how did this get by? It was all of those questions, but I never questioned God. Never questioned God because... And I don't know if that was questioning God or not, asking the doctors, how'd y'all not find this out? And y'all been looking at her all this time. And maybe it was fear. We have 2 boys, and one's in college and one will be 30 years old. My first thought was, how do I go tell them? How do I talk to them and tell them their mama's sick? And it was just, I was just nervous and just fearful of that.
And you mentioned the fear, and I can imagine, and that I lost my wife a few years ago, and you get, when you hear certain things and certain things happen, it doesn't matter how strong your faith is, it strikes your heart with fear. And Tonya, when you got that diagnosis, and it wasn't stage 1, but stage 3. And we all watched you as your brothers and sisters in Christ. And I never saw you complain or a time when you weren't smiling. And just tell me what sustained you. We know that James was there for you as Mike was for Nancy, but what sustained you through all of that?
Well, I mean, my faith. That was a big. Nancy struck me when she said, "I don't know how people who don't have support and don't have faith, how do they get through?" That was more of my thought as opposed to thinking of myself, because I knew what I had. I had strong husband who's going to definitely support me all the way through. All the way. And then the way that we did everything, we made sure that the people who we know are a part of our support system, that they knew, but not only did they know, but they had support around them. And then the prayers, just like Nancy, I got prayers and cards from folks all across the country, just like you said, and a congregation and family and friends that I've known for years. And as soon as they find out, it's like, what can I do? I mean, I even have relatives that live in other states and offered to come to town just to be with me. And so all of that helped to bring right to the forefront the love of God, the love of people, the love of family and friends, how important all of them are. So that's what sustained me. And so I just knew I had to get through it. And when the doctor called me and told me the diagnosis, it was like, okay, what do I do next? It's not like, woe is me. So did I have fear? Yes. But my fear was that, you know how God tells you multiple answers. He'll tell you yes, no, and so what answer am I going to get? And that was where my fear was. Was this the time that he was ready to take me away?
Yeah. And both of you, basically, what you're saying is your fear ignited your fight.
Exactly.
You got yourself ready to fight this. You didn't resign that this was the end and it was over, but your fear ignited that fight in you, and you decided. You probably thought about your family, your children, and rather than yourselves.
Oh yeah,
Right.
definitely.
One of the major things that I saw in Tonya was she put on this campaign to, okay, she picked up the phone, calling everybody saying, go get yourself checked out. Go get checked out. This was her thing, not being concerned about her, because she would go get herself checked out. She was calling all her family, all her friends, and said, I need you to make sure you're getting yourself checked out. And that's what one of the doctors was telling us. Early detection plays a huge role in the success rate in this, and for her to be doing that during her difficult time, it gave me strength, and it helped me.
Yeah, and in another segment of Mandate, we're going to talk about early detection and what you have to do to make sure that you know what's happening in your body before it gets to a stage to where you can't fight like the two of you did. So we're looking forward to having that segment where we talk about early detection and even diet and the things that you do to get yourself stronger. Mike, what was the best thing you could have done for your wife during all of this?
That's a good question. While I think about that question, you mentioned a moment ago faith, faith and what a role that plays. David said one time in Psalm 56, whenever I'm afraid, I'll trust in you. Mm-hmm. And then in that same context, he said, this I know God's for me. And, I think to have the kind of faith that will help you in dark days. And I don't think that I did anything unique or special, other than just maybe have a listening ear, a word of encouragement. Of course, prayer, that's an important role in it, and I do believe in the power of prayer. Mm-hmm. And,
Absolutely.
James said the effective prayer of a righteous man avails much. And so there's a lot to be said for prayer. And, and I think when it's all said and done, we have to have faith in God that whatever happens, it's in His court. When James talked about those trials, there are three things trials can do. They can shake our faith, they can break our faith, they can make our faith. And really, what I think happened with you ladies is that if anything, it helped you to develop a stronger faith, greater faith.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Nancy, I like what Tonya just said a moment ago about thinking about others. And I'm sure that you thought about the same thing. You thought about your family, you thought about your friends, you thought about the members of the church, and how you could help them by the way you presented yourself.
Oh, yeah, and the people at church, the way they reached out to me, and, everyone was so helpful and thoughtful, and, it makes you think about the example that you are showing to them,
right.
Even more so than before. In the past, you think about, the example that you're being, but with people reaching out to you so much more so, you realize how people are looking at you and really watching you, and it really makes you realize the example that you can be.
That's true.
Now that, they're seeing you in this position, and what an example you can be when you're quote unquote down.
Right.
Like this, right. What an example you can be in faith to them. And, that helps you be more up and more faithful and more positive in a down situation.
That is so true. And as we get ready to close, Tonya, were you cognizant of the fact that maybe some of the younger women and others were watching you, and you as a powerful woman, an elder's wife, as Nancy as a minister's wife, that there were those watching you?
There was a time when I did think about that, but naturally, I mean, I always tend to love on all my co-workers and family members and people at church, and so it did cross my mind, but it didn't stay there long because I just knew I just needed to be me, just be me, and I know with that and the faith that they were seeing that, and so never did I think, oh, I need to prop up or pretend.
Right.
I didn't have the strength for that. I had to focus on the fight. So I knew that if whatever I needed to do, it was just going to come out just based on who I am. And that was the thing. I didn't need to do anything special, and no one expected me to either.
Right.
They just loved on me, and so through all of that, yeah, I know I became an example of them because they told me so.
Well, I appreciate the conversation that we're having today, and hopefully we can continue this conversation. But one thing I want to leave you with, the Lord told us that we're the light of the world, and we are to allow our light to shine, that it glorifies God. And I can truly say, from personal observation, that you have two shining lights sitting here with us today who have borne the storm, who have gone through adversity with their spouses, who have been right there with them, and they have been a wonderful example to all of us as to how to persevere during the times of suffering. Mike and Nancy Hickson, James and Tonya Fields, glad to have y'all with us. Thank you for being with us and Mandate, and we will be right back.
The future depends on teachers. Right now, in a classroom somewhere in the United States, there is a teacher inspiring a future scientist who will make preventing pandemics their life's work.
Sharpening the mind of an aspiring environmentalist who will help combat climate change.
And generating possibilities for a student who will become the first in their family to graduate college.
Explore a career that leaves a legacy you can be proud of. Shape the future. Teach.
I'm Errol K. Reed, and today we will be having a conversation with Tonya Fields. Tonya, welcome to today's installment.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. Heart to Heart is something that we are just having a conversation. And we started a conversation earlier, and I appreciate you sharing with me. And I want you to share with our audience the beginning of your journey and how you are dealing with cancer and how it all began in terms of and just talk to us about that part of your journey.
So the way my journey began is I've always gone to my regular doctor's appointments and stayed up on them. And so when they said at 50 you need a colonoscopy, I was like, well, okay, fine. They found polyps and they told me come back in 5 years. Well, for me that was just normal. And so 5 years, here I am last year. And I made my appointment a couple months early even for my next one to follow up, like they said. And that's when they found a polyp that they said they needed to do a biopsy on. And then I find out several days later when my doctor called me, and I was at home by myself, and she called and she said, the polyp that we examined has cancer. Well, for me, it was not, oh my gosh, it wasn't that was not a feeling that came over me. It was, okay, so what do we do next? And she said, and it was on a Friday, so she said, next week, we're going to schedule you for a CT scan and do blood work on you and everything. And I said, well, it's still early. I can get to the doctor's office. Where is it? And I can go get blood now. And she said, well, they close in about 45 minutes. I can get there. And I jumped in my car and got there so they can get the blood, because my thought is, I need to take care of this. And it's immediate, so what I need to do. And then from there, after that I got calls. The plan was, I told my husband when he got home from work, we sat with it together for a little bit, and then we came up with a plan because we have 2 sons. How do we tell them? How do we communicate to them? And our notion, our overall plan was, we need everyone to have a support system. I need people to support me and my husband, and then we need the people who are supporting us to also feel supported so we could all be together. And so the thought was, we called a son that was at college in Western Kentucky, and we said, we're going to come and have lunch with you. and we drove to there, had lunch with him and his girlfriend, because she is his support person, and she happens to go to school there as well. And when she said, well, can I tell my mom? Yes, your mom is your support person.
And let me ask you this. So 31 years of marriage, plus, in terms of 35 plus years together.
Exactly.
29-year-old son, about to be 30.
Right.
22-year-old son in college.
Right.
And here you are in a whole different phase of your life. You've raised your family.
Yes.
Much. And so what's the difference in terms of how you lived without the challenge versus your perspective on life now?
Oh, well, but we were empty nesters. And so we had, even before our youngest got out of high school, we was like, okay, we're about to be empty nesters. What do we do? Well, we started going on more dates is what we started doing with each other. And so we were up to the point where we were like, let's take a quick trip, but short, long trip. Every other month we were taking a trip. Right. And so that was life before the diagnosis. Okay. And so, and I was working, my husband was working, and after the diagnosis, okay, what did we do? Once we get our support system around, it was okay, whatever they say we need to do to get through this, that's what we're gonna do. I had to have surgery, was a part of it, and that surgery occurred in December. Once I got through the surgery, it was okay, what's next? Well, for me, it was I can do work. I mean, the chemo was one of those things that was tough, and it was in that week of chemo where it really had me down. My immune system was low and things like that. So I didn't have to go in the office. They just told me, if you want to work, you can work, do it from home, and that's fine. And if you feel like coming in the office a day, it's fine. And there were times where I wanted to be in person. I just wore a mask and wouldn't stay long because I had so many other things going on. But for me, I got back to work.
So you found yourself being more proactive and positive in terms of every aspect of everything.
That's how I do things, honestly.
That's the best way to do it. When we come back, I want to talk to you about your faith and about communication.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good.
We're taking a quick break, and we'll be right back in a few moments.
Before I was adopted, I kind of felt alone.
I felt nervous that I wouldn't have a family.
And I didn't think I was going to get adopted because I knew I was getting older and older and older. I didn't think that was going to happen.
Every child deserves a safe, loving, and permanent home. Help the Dave Thomas Foundation for Adoption find homes for those waiting in foster care the longest. Donate now at davethomasfoundation.org/give.
We're back with Tonya Fields today, and we're going to continue our conversation that we started just a moment ago. Tonya, before we ended that last segment, I was wanting to understand the impact that this had on your faith, but then the second part of that, how you began to communicate out to others about what they needed to do. So if you could tell us about that.
Okay, yeah. As it relates to my faith, of course, I stayed strong in it. I never asked a question, why me kind of thing. For me, that wasn't something that was important. It was more of focusing in on that faith and understanding that it's His will. It's His will, and all I had to do is be prayerful and take care of the business. And that doesn't mean sitting still. It's prayer and act. You put the faith into action. And so I had someone to tell me, you need to advocate for yourself. Don't sit back and let them just tell you things. Advocate. And so I did that, and then reach out to my resources. I did that, and definitely prayer. And I had prayer from all sources. People at church with me, people outside of church, people in different states, my family and friends. And so I had plenty of things to keep me focused on my faith. So that was never an issue for me. As it relates to communication, before I had my surgery in December, we have a department of about 60 plus folks, and all different ages, very diverse department. And I asked my supervisor if I could speak to everyone, because I wanted them to understand that I didn't discover something because I felt bad, but because I was keeping up with my appointments. And even at keeping up with my appointments and things, they found this diagnosis is what I got. And so with that, the point for me, the important thing was to express to everyone, especially the young folks in our department, one, get some insurance, because if something happened, you never know when it happened, and you need to have coverage. You don't want to worry about your finances. Two, though, get checked out. And not only get checked out, talk to your family members and friends so you can make sure that they are also getting checked out. So what I told them was, especially young people, I said, we see things on television, and for many folks, and for many of us, it's like white noise. We don't hear, we don't pay attention. But I told them, pay attention. Go get your doctor's appointments, pay attention, and then share with your family. Any of your loved ones, let them know what's going on, and that colonoscopies, because this is colon cancer that I had, it's important. And any other kind of medical thing, it's all important. So you take care of yourself and share with your loved ones. And in addition to that, the other part was you want to talk to your loved ones, because sometimes knowing family history will have you to understand better how quickly you really need to act on things. And so for me, telling my sons, it's like, okay, this is your mom. She has a diagnosis, but I need you to also be cognizant of the fact that you're not going to live forever, but there are things that we can do to help us stay a little bit longer. Yeah, and that's getting the message going to the doctor.
So as we close this particular conversation, I look forward to talking to you again. So the faith aspect of it, you're telling our audience the importance of staying focused on your faith.
Definitely.
And advocating for yourself.
Yes.
Communicating with your family.
Definitely.
And have you noticed the difference in your relationship, even with your husband, after this, in terms of the importance that you have to him and that he has to you? Has that changed at all?
Well, the one big difference is I started calling my husband a general, because he hears something that the doctor says that I need to be paying attention to. He's laser focused on it, and he's making sure. Let me give you an example real quick. So I was, during this process, I'm not able to touch cold, eat cold, or drink cold, because it makes the nerves in my hands, my mouth, and my fingers go off. Oh, wow. And so literally when I go into the refrigerator, my husband's like, where are your gloves? You can't touch cold. And me being who I am, I would just take a little dish towel and dry dish towel and pull what I want out the refrigerator is how I would do it. And of course, other things, I wouldn't go in the freezer. He took care of that kind of stuff. So he was on me like what was it, white on rice, if you will.
So everything became more important.
More important.
So the relationship is greater. And the reason I'm asking you that, he's left the studio for today, but one of the things I think we can help people understand is that tragedy and challenges are not the end. Sometimes they're really the beginning of better things.
It is. It brings you closer. And I've always had appreciation, but the one thing I did emphasize throughout this process is I let him know. I verbalized more how appreciative I was of everything he was doing. Him sitting at the appointments with me, him meeting me every day there for anything I needed, he was right there. And he did the cooking and the cleaning, all the excess stuff that needed to be done. He did all of that, because there were times where I couldn't do anything, especially after my service. So I appreciate him that much more, and I let him know that much more.
Okay, well, God bless you, Tonya. God bless you. Thank you for spending time with us.
For sure, I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
I want to beat cancer. I'm going to beat it. That's no doubt in my mind. I'm going to win this battle.
Defeating cancer will take all of us. At the V Foundation, V is for victory over cancer. V is for victory over the odds. V is for victory over giving up.
Don't give up. Don't ever give up.
Join the V Foundation team in the fight against cancer at V.org.
Nancy, welcome to today's show.
Thank you very much.
All right. Today we will be talking to Nancy about her journey, her personal experience with cancer, and what that meant to her, her family, and to her faith.
Mike was such a supportive husband to me, and I can't imagine people who didn't have that support, who don't have that support, just so strong, and was always there, took up the slack at home when I wasn't able. And we laugh, and I'll say, I really don't remember the chemo being that bad, and Mike will be there like, are you kidding? It was horrible. But I guess you have selective memory. But Mike took up the doing the laundry, all the cleaning, anything at home that needed to be done. But it was that support that I look back now and I am so thankful for him. And, like Braden being there at the hospital and just the texting and the calling that Braden did, checking on me, and just the togetherness that we felt as a family. Even though Braden wasn't at home, he lives on his own, but just the togetherness that we felt through all this as a family, and in my extended family as well. My cousin from Nashville or from Columbia came down to go to some of my chemo treatments with me. Just the bond that we feel. Yeah.
We'll be back in just a moment as we continue this discussion. We're on Heart to Heart with Nancy Hickson. Welcome back to Heart to Heart. We'll continue our conversation with Nancy Hickson. As we were talking earlier, Nancy, one of the questions I asked you was how this circumstance, this particular challenge, how did it impact your faith within God, and how did it impact your life in terms of what changed?
Well, one thing, I couldn't continue going to church physically. The chemo caused my immune system to be depleted, so I had to go online to church. And for me, that was a challenge to stay focused online. You're at home, and for me, there were so many distractions. Being home to stay focused at worship, and so my journaling came into effect. I made another journal to use when I was at worship, and I started these journals for one for worship, and then another one just for my personal Bible study, and that just really, really heightened my personal Bible study. And so that has just really made my personal Bible study blossom. And, I don't know if I would have done that had it not been for the cancer and the chemo and having to stay home and worship online.
So your faith, would you say your faith became more focused in terms of your personal relationship with God?
Yes, and my personal Bible study really has become more focused and more intense.
Now we're going to act like Mike's not in the studio right now, and because I want to ask you how you feel that he's your direct contact. That's your husband. That's that's everything in terms of that one relationship. Not only. Okay, you're telling us it increased your faith in God, your focus in your Bible study. What impact did it have on your relationship with this man you've been with for 35 years?
Well, seeing how he stepped up and really was everything for me and to me and in my life, I mean, you can't imagine how that really increased my love for him, my appreciation for him, my devotion to him. I mean, when you see someone who just is, I knew he was devoted to me and loved me, but when you see how he just gives everything to me when I am, just can't do anything. I mean, it just, it makes you see your spouse in a completely different way.
Did you see greater communication with you all in terms of just the intimacy aspect of it and the importance of that day-to-day living, and that everything became more important?
Oh yeah, I mean, he would, text or call and check on me multiple times during the day, and, he'd have to go to Walmart several times, and he'd text, what do you need, and, what can I get for you, and, it was, everything was just heightened, and it was incredible.
That's awesome. I have one last question, and this just came to mind. So again, we've been talking pretty much organically all day. If you had one thing that you could say was a victory in all of this. We know cancer is sometimes a very horrible and aggressive disease. We know that we have to go through all types of medical treatment. Our family is impacted, our churches are impacted, our friends and family. What personal victory do you see in all of this? And I know that you still have some months to go before they get you to another phase of treatment and examination. But what one thing can you take from this that you can share with our audience about your victory?
I think just my outlook on life, the way I look at life, in that I don't take things for granted. That life is, it's a blessing from God. It's something to be thankful for and not to take for granted, not to overlook, not to, just wake up in the morning and just go on and just think, well, here's another day and look at it like, great, here's another day. It'd be like, great, here's another day. Right. It's
the impact of that, waking up and being able to experience all of God's beauty one more
exactly,
time. Okay.
Exactly.
We talked about earlier, and we're going to close the segment here in a moment, and we were talking about trials and tribulations and how you wake up, and just to hear a bird sing or a lightning bug at night flying by a window.
Yes.
Just how much we don't take things for granted anymore.
Exactly.
Nancy, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
God bless you. Thank you for tuning in to Mandate. God bless you today.